Hello, my name is Paul Bird and welcome to my PanSIG presentation teaching a hybrid discussion course with Zoom. As you know, we've had lots of fun and games over the past year with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has negatively affected many overseas homestay programs. And to mitigate this, we liaised with the University of Victoria in Canada to develop an online homestay program. Today then I'm going to talk to you about this short course I prepared. It was a preparatory course for the purpose of familiarizing the students with internet systems and especially Zoom. Though they had already been using it, we wanted to make sure everybody was able to effectively exploit the software. And I also wanted to develop some activities which I thought would be communicative in the sense that students could interact with each other and exchange information where if two were speaking, where A would know something that B did not, and therefore there would be some kind of meaningful interaction between them rather than talking about a topic which they both were aware of. Now, I prepared several slides. Some of the slides here are especially for the presentation, and I also have some additional materials which I'll show you, which I presented to the students before and during the course. So in outline then, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background to the short course. I'd like to look at some of the problems I considered and how I went about dealing with them. I'll go through the course content with you, particularly homework activities, the way the lessons were structured, and I will also give you some feedback which is both my own and my students. Okay, so moving on to the background then. We have various online exchange programs, chiefly with the United States, but also with Canada and the United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand. Now, these 60 second year students, the number doesn't change much every year, can generally choose which countries they would like to visit. So instead of doing their 3-month homestay, which they would normally complete during the second semester of their second year, we instead negotiated 2 courses which would be held online. One was in the United Kingdom and the other was the University of Victoria in Canada. Now, the students were allowed to choose which program they could enroll on, and all of them chose the University of Victoria in Canada. A couple of reasons for this. The time difference was better for the students, and the course was a mixed course whereby students from other countries, including Canada, would attend and participate. Not only students from the University of Nagasaki Prefectural University. The course in the United Kingdom, unfortunately, only our students could attend, so they felt they wouldn't benefit so much from talking only with their classmates. So the course then they elected was the University of Victoria, and it was a 1-month course, a 4-week course, which would be held online and tutored by University of Victoria staff. Now, the problems then we faced and we considered at the time were well, basically twofold. First, we would have the student-focused problems, and these were mostly logistical, whether or not the students would have access to the internet, or indeed, if they did, whether they would have the appropriate ICT systems. We strongly recommended that students adopt headsets to use with Zoom to aid or facilitate understanding and communication. We also looked at the potential of unfamiliarity with Zoom or certain functions within Zoom, specifically breakout rooms and chat and so on and so forth. And likewise, we were concerned that the students would struggle with the University of Victoria's program, but in fact the University of Victoria dealt with this by providing the students with various internet links to YouTube channels where they explained and demonstrated. So in the end, this was not a focus of my class, my preparatory lesson. From my point of view, then, I was concerned about talking too much. It's in online classes, in Zoom classes, it's very easy comparatively easy to develop teacher-focused or teacher-centered classes where the teacher does the talks for 75% of the time and the students listen, take notes. I wanted to avoid that. I wanted to encourage student interaction between each other, not only with me, but with each other in English. And I wanted the students to develop communicative skills, which were led by themselves, again, without too much prompting from me. And of course, finally, I wanted them to be familiarized with Zoom itself. So here's what I did in terms of the course outline. I based the course materials, I chose them based on a book called Discover Debate. It was a useful book, an introductory book on developing debating skills for students of English. The course itself that I taught was I had 3 classes, but the students were taught 2 classes. We had an introductory lecture where I introduced the students to certain principles of debating, and then after that the students were split into 2 groups of 30, and they were taught the second class online in Zoom. The 2 groups were given identical lessons, or more or less, of 70 minutes in total. The students were given homework. They were given preparatory homework after the lecture, and of course they were given homework after the Zoom class itself in order to facilitate their reflection and understanding. And finally, of course, I collected some student feedback and comments on what they regarded to be the benefits or disadvantages of being taught on Zoom. Now, if we go back a bit, I'd like to show you the course materials I prepared. I hope you can see these. I zoom in slightly. Now, these are slides then, the PDF of the slides I taught during the first lesson, the lecture. So I lectured principally on the skills that I thought they would be needing to use. They would need to use for debate. Only a handful of skills, not all of them. I focused on certain skills like opinions, reasons, supports, and then we discussed a case study. Specifically, then I instructed them on what is an opinion, what constitutes an opinion, and the main points were, giving how to give opinions on value, policy, and fact. And the key point I wanted them to take away from here was the various structures underneath. So X is better than Y, X should do Y, X will be true. So the students were encouraged to use these structures then. Having done that and developed their own, giving them examples, we moved on to a case study, which then, of course, is a popular one. Should capital punishment be retained or abolished? And I invited the class in groups then to debate the merits or demerits of retaining or abolishing capital punishment. So the students then, in their lessons, in the first lesson, had the opportunity to practice the target language with each other, and familiarize themselves with the activity they would be doing in the Zoom class. Now, moving on to the Zoom class, I set them a homework activity, and their homework activity was to discuss a place where they would go on homestay, where they would like to go. And this website here, The Guardian, here gives an example of 21 destinations, their countries: Portugal, Italy, the Czech Republic, and so on. And the students were invited to read this web page, read the copy I provided them, and based on their own opinions and their own feelings, they were invited to choose a destination, one destination out of the 21, and explain why they thought it was the best destination to go for a homestay. And in order to help them, I gave them a template, again in PowerPoint. So obviously you can see here they write down the country of their choice, and because it's a debate, they have to introduce their proposition with each other. You know, I believe that the Czech Republic is the best country to go for studying abroad because, and then they give their reasons. So they were invited to fill out this template with their reasons, and give a presentation of their own ideas, which they did. As an example, we have here Yuka. She chose Spain, and she filled in the template, and her proposition was, I believe that Spain is the best country to go for studying abroad because there are many tourist destinations in Spain, and Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world. Moreover, I've heard pronunciation is similar to the Japanese, and that it's easier for Japanese to learn than English. So Yuka then has very practical reasons for wanting to learn Spanish and going to Spain. And the students then, how I dealt with this was breakout rooms with, I believe, between 4 and 6 students in a breakout room. And the students then would basically give their presentations and debate amongst themselves why their chosen country was the best country to go. And they were invited to evaluate each other and give a score based on the presentation they thought was the best. And in order to help them evaluate each other's presentations, I made a questionnaire based on a scale. Here they chose where 1 would be the least satisfying and 5 would be the best. You're familiar with this scale, I'm sure. So I gave them 7 questions they needed to answer, and they would tally up the score afterwards for a maximum of 33, and whoever got the highest score was declared the winner. Now I thought, to make things more interesting and more interactive, so that the students had more of a reason to pay attention to each other's presentations and engage with each other, I thought I would introduce this element of competition between them. That is the purpose of including this evaluation, is to have the students engage with each other and the material instead of just listening and dozing off or whatever. So they did this, and at the end, 40 minutes or thereabouts to deliver their presentations and debate in their groups. Having done that, they came back and reported on each other's presentations. And I encouraged the best presenters, as chosen by their peers, to once again give their presentations to the whole group, and then I offered them feedback on this. Now, once the course was completed and the students had filled in the slides for the presentations, I asked for some feedback on how they thought the course went, and what worked for them and what didn't. And we got some feedback. I got some feedback based on, well, several things really. First of all, the students, some of them expressed their concern about catching COVID-19 from each other, which was obviously very much a contemporary issue and understandable. So, you know, being able to conduct this activity at home was reassuring for them. But on the other hand, there were some communicative difficulties. Some students didn't buy their headsets, perhaps, and struggled with my instructions. Hence, they wanted more instructions through the chat function of Zoom. So that's something to bear in mind if you wish to issue instructions to the students. It is perhaps helpful for some to read them as well in the chat. Others struggled about choosing a destination to go to. Perhaps they wanted to go to several countries and couldn't choose them between them. I think one point I struggled to address, and as did the student, was that in the breakout rooms, the students were not able to share their screens, and I think some of them really wanted to do that. That may be a mistake on my part. Perhaps there is some switch I could toggle to enable the students in the breakout rooms to share each other's screens, but that was an oversight on my part. And if I were going to do this again, I would recommend enabling screen sharing for members, not only the teacher. However, students who had practiced this activity, who did attend the Zoom training, did feel rather that the practice allayed their fears of any nerves they might have had about speaking and contributing on Zoom. They found the experience reassuring, and others felt that they appreciated the breakout rooms because they could get some more intimate connection with their classmates. So on the whole, I would say the feedback was positive, and they did seem to enjoy the experience. My thoughts on this, though, in the end, when I constructed and administered and taught this little short course with the students, you know, I reflected on it and I wondered if it was as communicative as I hoped. The activities were very much led by me. I mean, I prepared the templates, I prepared the presentations, and so very much they were being guided by me, even if they chose the homestay destination and they gave their own reasons for this. Very much the activity was of my choosing, led by me, not by the students. So I think if I were going to do this again or recommend it to others, is you might want to think about ways to relinquish control over the activity and allowing your students to take a more hands-on approach with it. Now, I guess this requires a certain amount of trust in one's students that they will do the work. My principal fear was that without, you know, specific guidance from me, that I would have a group of students attending, you know, the Zoom class and not speaking to each other because they just didn't know what to say. But on the other hand, perhaps I went to the other extreme where I was acting as the conductor and pushing them too hard in a particular direction. I think potentially this as well is quite burdensome for the teachers themselves. If you are, constantly, micromanaging the course and the slides and preparing all these activities, you are likely to find it hard work. So if you could find a comfortable balance between priming the students and then letting them lead their own activities, then that would be superior, I think. And another issue is, of course, with online classes, once you've got large groups, I initially had 60, though they were whittled down to 30 for each Zoom class. Once you have groups of above a certain size, that really it's easy for you to get lost amongst the groups, and the amount of, how can I say, all group feedback becomes limited. So the students communicate in their breakout rooms with each other, but don't really interact with the group as a whole. So this is another potential weakness, I would say. So my recommendations, perhaps, for a Zoom class would be perhaps 8 students, perhaps no more than a dozen students, in order to keep the level of communication not only between teacher and student and students, but also between each other and their own class. So this then is my presentation, and I hope you found it useful, and thank you very much for watching.